Okay, so welcome everyone. Just to state the purpose of the call today is to provide us with the opportunity to share and dialogue about our endeavors, aspirations, and the challenges we each face in moving the legal culture in a more healing direction and integrating spirituality into law and politics. So this is going to be a more open conversation than we usually have when we have speakers and Q&A. So great to have you all for this. And I guess we will turn it over to Perry to lead our process of introducing each other, and then over to Bonnie to facilitate the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Nanette. So traditionally, I just pick out a face and a name, and your job is to introduce yourself, say where you are, and perhaps what you're looking at the moment, what your view of the world is, briefly. Marjorie, why don't you start us off?
Hey, I am in my apartment in New York City, looking out at a beautiful late May day. And I teach an externship seminar at Touro Law Center, and I have been involved with PISLAP on and off for decades. I was the editor of the book Transforming Justice, Lawyers, and the Practice of Law. Most of the chapters in that book are written by members of PISLAP.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't want me to pass it? You're going to do that?
Yeah, I'll pass it on. Just so I can get this out of the way, I am Perry Sedman. I'm on the executive committee of PISLAP. I am sitting at the moment in my Washington, D.C. Apartment, looking out at a lovely spring day here in D.C. Let me turn it over to Annette.
Hi, everybody. My name is Annette. I am in Forestville, South Australia, in my house. It's 2:30 a.m. or thereabouts. I received a job offer today that I accepted to the Women's Legal Centre here in South Australia. I'm an early career lawyer, even though I'm a mature age, and where I'm at philosophically is, well, I'm grateful. I really am grateful for PISLAP. I discovered it a couple of years ago. I just Googled law and spirituality, the two words together, thinking I'd never get anything, and I came across Peter's page, and a year later I joined. So I feel a bit of trepidation, to be honest, about embarking on my new job, in that how much difference can I really make? But I think I want to just bring, say, the quality of my attention to the clients at least. So thank you.
Sounds wonderful. Good of you to join us. Nice to have you. Nikki, you are next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki. I am in the marina in San Francisco, house sitting for a friend, but I live in Noe Valley, and I learned about PISLAP during Peter's funeral, and I work in the district attorney's office, a place where I think a lot of what y'all are going to talk about is needed. So I'm happy to be here and to learn what y'all are doing. So thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure to have you. Pleasure. Debbie, you're next.
Hey everybody, Debbie, she, her pronouns. I am in my apartment in Chicago, which I'm looking at a bunch of boxes because we're moving soon to a house in the suburbs, which is strange and exciting. And Yeah, I've been, I guess, on the fringes of PISLAP for a few years now, but I'm not very involved because I'm just so busy. But where I'm philosophically at is kind of the opposite of a nut. I am actually like really struggling with the whole idea of being a lawyer, and I've been trying for years. Like I've been a lawyer since what, 2006, I guess. And I was an appellate defender, and then I switched and became a legal aid attorney a couple of years ago. And now I'm just like, sort of like what Stu said, except I don't know. I just think I've been trying to change this profession for a long time from the inside out, and I'm exhausted. So I'm thinking about going to grad school to become a therapist, but I'm here because I'm still a lawyer right now. So thanks for having me.
Good to have you, Debbie. We'll explore all these wonderful things when we finish the go round. Dr. Peterson, you're next.
I'm not a Dr. Perry. I'm Bruce Peterson. I'm a retired judge in Minneapolis, in my home office, looking out on my beautiful but small but green backyard with a beautiful day. I'm a longtime member of PISLAP and former member of the executive committee. And PISLAP has been very inspirational to me in helping support my efforts to do what we're trying to do. So, and I'm glad, Debbie, that Duncan is on the call because he can tell you about recovering lawyers who become therapists.
Great. Duncan, you're next.
And I really am a doctor, so I can claim that one. So I'm Duncan Holloman. I am, a recovering lawyer. Went to law school, suffered from some of the same things that Debbie is talking about in terms of the nature of the profession, and decided to get a clinical psychology degree, which I have now, and I've worked as a psychotherapist for many years. But I should also say I'm just really interested in looping back and seeing if there's some way that I can contribute to the field to make the field so that it's more humane, and that folks like Debbie don't think that it's necessary for them to drop out entirely. But I'm just wondering if I could have a career in helping lawyers to make transitions out of the law. I'm looking outside at the Inner Harbor in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Good to see you again. Shirani, you're next.
Good evening. I think it's night for me, and I think it's good morning for some of you, and certainly good night to poor Annette, who's here in the early hours of the morning. First of all, let me just tell you that I am Shirani, but I'm not the Shirani from the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice who got impeached. I'm not her. I'm the acting Chief Justice and a Supreme Court judge when I retired. And now I'm an arbitrator, both nationally and internationally, as well as the consultant to the Judges Institute. And I do a lot of work with different organizations like the UNDP, UNODC, ICJ, mainly because I was the first woman to join as state counsel, and then that is the Prosecutor General's office. And then I became the first woman High Court judge and the appellate judge, president of the judge, and then a Supreme Court judge. So I've always seen a side of, perhaps had a different lens, because I came into the profession long ago. It's now almost 40 years since I joined the profession. And it is, I think it was at that time, women were in a very, very different paradigm as to when they're here now. And it was important for me that when you talked of equality, because even as a state counsel, it concerned me, because this whole question of equality. And when you talk of equality, you can't have people who are different and disadvantaged by the law and say, well, they're still equal before the law, without addressing that problem. Why are they different and what are the disadvantages, and accommodating those disadvantages? So I worked most of my life on women's issues, children's issues, and it's so connected to the environment. And of course, I'm crazy about digital and the new world that is opening for us. But I think this is really interesting for me because I've always felt that the law and spirituality went together in the larger realm of things, because a lot of what is in the law originates from the words in the Old Testament. A lot of the laws, a lot of the process, the concepts of what they're talking about. But I also found that the law is the opposite of spirituality. You know, it is so mundane. It is about money. It's about consumerism. It's about the powerful. There's a huge imbalance of power between those who are, say, at one end of the spectrum and those who are at the other end, who are vulnerable, who are open to exploitation and manipulation. And do they really get justice unless we actively work for it? So I have been working through different organizations on bringing equality wherever I worked. But I think this whole concept, and I spoke to Peter and I found, and Nanette, I think Nanette is here today. Yeah. Yeah,
yes, I am, Shirani. Yes, I am.
Yeah, and it was very interesting because it was a COVID time and I just got this invitation and I thought, I've been on the Zoom anyway, teaching judges the whole day. I might as well check into this. And I just heard Peter and Nana talk and I thought, this has been somewhere, you know, how do we equate justice with the law? The only way of doing it is to bring in spirituality, which leads to empathy, which leads to emotive intelligence. So these have been things I've been thinking about a long time and working on. So I'm so pleased to see that there are at least 14 people around the world who are here today and thinking in the same lines, wanting to do something different. And I'm thrilled at the age disparity because it's really inclusive with very young people here and old people like us here. So it's nice.
Very good. Very
Nice to
good
meet
to
you.
have you with. Good to have you with us, Shirani. Nanette, you're next.
Oh, and I just want to say, Shirani, you didn't say where you're from, what country
Sri Lanka.
you're from.
Sorry, I'm from Sri Lanka. Thank you, Nanette.
Just want to make sure everybody knew. Okay, thank you so much for that. Hello, everyone. I'm Nanette Shore. I am sitting in my apartment in New York City. Right now, I'm actually looking at the kitchen cabinet where I'm charging my computer, but out the window, it's a beautiful spring day. Maybe just one word to share about my own path, which is I've worked really for many years, since the late 80s, in legal services office. So similar to Debbie, she said she was a public defender and legal aid attorney. I've been in legal services, similar type work. And I have for a long time felt that my PISLAP self and my legal services self were very, very different. But in recent years, I've really felt them coming together as the holistic and the spiritual and the transformative have really begun to integrate more into the practice in offices serving low-income communities. So just wanted to mention that. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Julie, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I first found PISLAP as a CUNY law student, and I had serendipitously met Peter and his family at Unite Here, local 2 in San Francisco, where I was interning that summer. And then the conference right afterwards was at CUNY, so I got to keep in touch and meet more of you wonderful folks. And now I'm heading into the legal academia. So I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania right now, and I completed a year teaching property law as a visiting assistant professor, and I'm moving to Indianapolis for a tenure track position. Not my ideal location, but people seem really nice and want to stay plugged into this community, especially I was in the wake of Peter's death and thinking about all he stood for and changing legal education.
Great to have you with us. Oh, all right. I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you talking?
Oh, just looking at a really nice view in my backyard. Pittsburgh is really woodsy.
Good to have you. Victor, you're next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Victor Naro, he, him, from Los Angeles. It's overcast today, so it's good because it's not too warm. It's nice and cool. Um, I I connected with PISLAP about like 4 or 5 years ago to Chamtoli Hook from New York, from CUNY, and Kachi and I were doing a lot of like work on with the law at the margins, blog space about faith and lawyering, and then I know I haven't been an active member. I've been a member but not an active one, so but I always appreciate this space, and your emails always bring some comfort and joy to my work. Now, my work is mostly I teach. I have a labor studies program at UCLA with the UCLA Labor Center Labor Studies program. But then I've been teaching at the law school a seminar for the public interest law program with the second-year students every fall, and I try to integrate this concept of spirituality and contemplation into the program, and students love it. I'm seeing a lot of great movements. Not just at UCLA Law School, but other places where people are talking about this. I think, years ago it was law and organizing, right? We're trying to find the connection between lawyers and organizers. I think today people are really paying more attention to spirituality and lawyering. And I know the ABA now has a definition of spiritual well-being that they want everybody to embrace. So I'm feeling very positive about it moving forward. I think this is the next pioneer for lawyers, especially social justice lawyers. So I'm always grateful to be in the space. Thank you.
Good to have you. Bonnie, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bonnie Silvestri. I am on the executive committee of PISLAP. I connected with PISLAP about 20 years ago when I was working in New York City and used to have dinners with Nanette and the other members that were in the New York branch. And then recently saw about 2 years ago, I guess, during COVID, that the meetings were picking back up again. I really love going to them. So I got involved with the executive committee. And my background is in ethics. I've done primarily government ethics throughout my career and have also been teaching for 15 years at our local undergraduate facility. So I've been teaching undergrads about law and civic engagement. So that's where my passion is. I am currently looking to my next role, and I love ethics, but I feel every time I see young people and I start talking with them, I just keep thinking about how much I love my classes. So I would like to push more towards teaching, and the idea of the transformative experience of education is really inspiring to me. And I just want to say, and we can get into it a little bit more, but I live in Sarasota, Florida. It's incredibly beautiful here, but I'm also in what is sort of ground zero for the transition in terms of what our governor is trying to do to change our education system and get rid of DEI. That was just signed here in my hometown. And I got to attend the alternative graduation at New College where Maya Wiley was speaking, and they had to create their own alternative graduation because of all of the sort of takeover of the school. So I'm completely fascinated by that and concerned about it because it could be taken nationwide. So those are sort of the areas that I've been thinking about and looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Brad, you are next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brad. I'm in New York City and looking out at I'm looking at a ring light, but outside it's very nice here. And I've been associated with PISLAP for a number of years now, and I teach a course called Mediation and Meditation at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, City University of New York, which is an undergraduate endeavor, and it's just been approved to be a general education course starting in 2024. So it'll be available to all 13,000 students at the university. And my students right now are taking a test which a final exam, which asks them the differences between litigation, arbitration, mediation, among other topics. I also chair and co-founder of Mediators Beyond Borders New York, and it's a pleasure being with you all.
Thank you, Brad. Last but certainly not least is Lisa. You're muted, babe. You're muted. Well, let us know when you unmute, Lisa, and we'll give you a chance to say who you are and where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. I had Wi-Fi problem and lost the call. Oh, there's Lisa. Okay, I was just gonna.
Well, meantime, I know a lot of you are members of PISLAP, and those of you who are not, membership is open to you. If you go to our website, spiritlawpolitics.org, and click on membership, we have a very reasonable dues structure, and you can support our work by becoming an official member. And I should mention that our website is at the moment undergoing extensive renovation and updating. And within about a month or so, we should have something very nice to share. Lisa,
I'm
looks
back.
like you made it. You made it. Go ahead.
I made it.
Tell
I
us
just
who
had
you
to
are, where you are.
update
Yeah.
my Zoom app, and it had a bunch of new things I didn't understand. Anyway, hi, I'm Lisa Jakes. I'm Peter Gable's partner, and I neglected to put this event in my date book and double booked myself. So I'm off to a training on how to run protests. We're teaching our members, our new leaders in our rank and file membership of my union, how to run animated, disciplined, effective protests. And so I'm off to do that now. I'm in San Francisco in the, what we call the action room of my union. And it's so great to see you all and hear about your work, and you're remembering Peter. And I'm so grateful that I can be in these meetings. Thank you.
Good to see you, Lisa. Should we turn it over to Bonnie directly? Okay, Bonnie,
Okay.
back to you.
We sort of talked about how this was going to be an open meeting. I will start off by saying that I was listening to everyone's introduction, and I heard some common themes, which are, can we be a lawyer and sort of be true to ourselves? And that was kind of something I was seeing. Each person had a different sort of take on that. So I think that's a really interesting and important question. I saw it pop up quite a bit on my LinkedIn today, and it may be that that algorithm is getting me or something. But it was people talking about big law. This woman is like suing because big law killed her husband, she's saying. And then I was looking at all these kinds of comments about wellness, how lawyers need to be involved in self-care, which has been something we've been talking about a lot with Myrna and some of the other speakers that we've had. So I did definitely hear people sort of struggling with that. And I do think that PISLAP is an important resource for people to be able to talk about that. And then I was really drawn to what Stu was also talking about before he had to leave for his cleaning lady about, is law really just a default? So I thought that I would kind of throw out a couple of those very interesting questions and thoughts, because it was really nice to kind of hear that so many people were sort of dealing with the same kind of issue. But yet I did hear some notes of hopefulness that the two areas, like Nanette was saying, sort of her PISLAP life and her work life are coming together. So maybe we could all sort of speak to that more deeply, those couple of themes, because I, for one, have found that it's actually gotten a little harder for me to figure out how to bring those two areas together. So I do think that that's really helpful, but I think that has a lot to do with the politics that we're sort of dealing with here in Florida. So I will throw it out to people who might have some thoughts. I definitely, felt like there were certain things that people really wanted to talk more deeply about, that sort of struggle. So maybe some of the newer people on the call, like Annette, who's going into her new work life, and the other woman who I lost her name, but who was sort of struggling with that as well. And maybe we can take from some of the elder statespeople on our call who've been able to make those kinds of connections so well, like Stu and others. So I will open it up. Who sort of had some thoughts about what kinds of themes that we were addressing during this meeting? Any hands or thoughts? Perry, you look like
Annette has her hand up. Annette.
Oh, okay, Annette.
Okay, thank you. I have my physical, not my digital hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you need to be yourself and be a lawyer. You need some courage to do things differently, to leave yourself open to belittlement from other lawyers. You need to be a little bit courageous and not to be so afraid of the law societies, the regulators of legal practice, I think, because my experience, and I was admitted to practice in August 2021, my experience is how afraid lawyers are in Australia or South Australia of the law society and of being sued or doing something wrong, so there's so much fear of other lawyers, fear of the client, fear of the regulators. So I guess I'll sum up by saying casting off a bit of fear, try to, for everyone not to be so afraid. What's the worst that can happen? You get a really good paying job in admin or something, you know. That's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, so sort of that fear and replacing that with authenticity and putting yourself out there. I have to say, Annette, I don't know where you are sitting because I know what country, but what is going on with the artwork? Because it's amazing. Is this your office or?
It's kind of my lounge room, and it's just prints that I managed to get.
I love them. Okay. It looks beautiful. Okay, so next to Debbie, who I guess used to live in Florida, and sorry, Debbie, you were the person I was thinking of. So sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks, no problem. I thought that you meant me. I wasn't sure, but so I will just say that I first learned of PISLAP several years ago, as I said, and through PISLAP, I heard about like the jam, like the Yes Jam. And I went in 2019 to a jam, which I don't know if anyone doesn't know that. It's an amazing thing. It was like I was so nervous about it because I was like, what the hell is this weird thing? But like, I was so desperate that I was like, I'm just gonna go. And I like did my application, and I had also done yoga teacher training. Like it's been a really transformative decade for me personally, like lots of personal loss that's led me to like show up more authentically. So speaking to the whole idea of fear, like Annette, like I have very deliberately sort of decided to bring my whole self to work. I've been doing that for several years now. And, you know, it's led me on a journey. I got out of my one job and I'm in a new job now. And like, honestly, and I don't mean to be negative, but my fear is that like, it's the structure of the law itself that doesn't allow for, yeah, Judy Cohen was there at the jam. And maybe it's just my like direct services. Like I know many of you here in academia, and I'm sure there are jobs in which you can, but like I literally don't have time for the things that I need to do to keep myself healthy, to show up in the way that Hammer, who was talking about, like, you know, showing up. I think it was the woman in Sri Lanka, about how do we find equality, right? And like, I know from my own personal experience in the world and my professional experience and my spiritual life, which is very prevalent, that like, in order for me to show up for my clients, I have to be okay for myself. And the structure of the legal system that I work in the expectation is I'm always available. If I can't really go on vacation without having to have my, like, it's crazy. And like, this shouldn't be this way. And it doesn't matter how much I take care of myself and how much I show up at work. I can't change the system. And so I don't know, like, I am hopeful, but also I'm like, and I mentor younger lawyers, like I do all the things, but I'm like, I cannot keep going like this. And I'm just curious to know what others feel. So sorry, that was a lot, but.
Well, Debbie, that's kind of exactly what I was seeing in LinkedIn, that so many people are posting about that. And I do think it has something to do, and I'd be curious what everyone else thinks, but a little bit of coming out of the pandemic and just not, we didn't take any of the lessons of the pandemic, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so I thought that it showed us that we could slow down, we could work from home, we could do all these things for self-care that we needed to do because health was at our forefront. But yet we kind of went right back to everything business as usual. At least that's been my observation. So it could be a bit of that. But I was also wondering if you could just tell us, if you don't mind, like where you are working or like what is the site that you're in?
Yeah, so I now work for a really small organization called Legal Counsel for Health Justice, and I'm a staff attorney. Like I went down in my career because I wanted to learn, because I switched from criminal law to civil law, and I first was a legal aid attorney at Legal Aid Chicago. I was a supervisory attorney in the public benefits department supervising people, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I can't supervise people, so I took this job. And so I'm part of a medical legal partnership at a small clinic that's part of Cook County Public Hospital, like the health. So I work with people living with HIV. And I really love my job. The problem is, like, I feel like there's a fire hose on with the clients and what I'm expected to do. And like, I've told my supervisor, like, there's too many cases and they keep coming. And she's just like, you know, sorry, out of luck. And I'm just like, how can I do this? Like, there are not enough hours in a day. And it's a really wonderful organization. Everyone there is lovely, but there's this disconnect between, like, you know, what you're expected to do and how much time there is in which to do it. And that seems to be common among a lot of people who I know who are lawyers.
Yes, especially because I think you probably have the passion for that kind of work, where then they're not well financed and they don't have people to assist you. But I do really hope you take a vacation. So maybe some other people have some guidance as well, but Julie is next.
Hi, everyone. Well, just remembering the days as a legal service attorney, relating to all your stories, there definitely seems to be a burnout culture. You know, if you're a lawyer who wants to use the law to help people, the options seem to be limited. And then for those of us who think of the potential of the law to transform society, you know, maybe that's where we could all put our heads together, like outside of our day jobs and of course, like everything else going on, including self-care. You know, how to do that. So, but because it was exciting and at Peter's Memorial just to see how many amazing people attended, who are thinking about change and societal transformation and coming at it from a sustainable and spiritual way. And then just to share briefly my experience trying to enter legal academia, you know, with a CUNY degree, I've encountered so much bias, elitism, you know, as someone who has certain beliefs and values and maybe doesn't want to talk a certain way or even write a certain way. So I'm unclear whether I will truly succeed, but also love, you know, the support of this community and thinking of classes or angles and how to talk to the administration about the importance of incorporating mindfulness into legal academia, you know, or why it's worth it to go out on a leap in that direction.
Julie, I remember you speaking last time, and because I was thinking about CUNY or different places that I might go. And so I was trying to remember who mentioned that kind of elitism that we were talking about in the last session. Duncan I mean, he seems to be like the one person on the call who did make that kind of shift, but is still, has his heart with us in legal practice. So he is the next person whose hand I see.
Yes. And yes, I'm really concerned about what's going on in the law. And now that I'm mostly retired as a psychotherapist, I have some time to devote to this. And Lyle Baker and I, for example, have had a couple of lunches together to look at this question. There are a couple of things that I might add to this conversation. One of them is that when I wrote my doctoral dissertation, I insisted on using the first person. That I had to write from my point of view, and I had to be a person in order to write what I was writing about. And the topic of the dissertation doesn't really matter, but I made that point that I was going to use the first person. I was going to say I, not the researcher. It was I, and I noticed that Marjorie is nodding her head. So that's the second thing that I wanted to point toward. Is that Marjorie and Susan Brooks, I think her name is, have written a fabulous article about introducing a relational curriculum to law schools, to say that, because for me, as I listen to lawyers and as I was one for a while, the challenges are not so much in the content area of the law as they are in the relationships that you're struggling with, to sit with people that are suffering, to deal with opposing attorneys who are nasty and angry. It's the relationships that are the hard thing. And my slogan about this, and some of you have already heard this, is the soft stuff is the hard stuff. And my hope is that in training young lawyers in law school, that we train them in how to be a person as well as how to be a lawyer. And I will share one more concern about this conversation, and it's about the emphasis on well-being. That in a sense, what that does is enable the dysfunction of the institution itself by making it easier for people to survive in it. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, that's counterproductive. So the fact that people are so unhappy being lawyers is a really important source of information and energy to say, wait a minute, maybe this is not the kind of institution we want to be involved in.
Duncan, I absolutely love what you're saying. Someone just asked if you could post the link to your article. I do think that it is what you're sort of seeming to be saying is that we have sort of like an abscess or some symptoms that are really, and so because I've been thinking about this as well, by having people have like a mindfulness class at their work, it's just kind of papering over the situation without getting to like what it is about the work and the structure that's causing that issue to begin with. So because where I just was working, there was quite a lot of dysfunction, but yet we had this amazing mindfulness program. And I always said that was the thing that I liked the most about my work. And my uncle was like, well, that seems like you don't really like it if the only thing you like about it is the like free mindfulness class that we had. But the fact that I feel that they just put that in there because it was self-insured. So they wanted to like say we had this mindfulness class or something, but it wasn't really getting to the root of the dysfunction in the organization. So I feel that was really an important point that you made, Duncan.
So can I just follow up just
Yes,
two things? That mindfulness is about my experience of myself, not my relationships with other people. That's part of the core principle here for me. And second, the article, Marjorie is the one that did the work, and so it's not my article. It's Marjorie and Susan. So if you could post that, it's
yeah,
like 40 pages.
I'm looking for the site right now. My technical skills aren't as good as my.
So Duncan, Duncan, could you make that point more clearly, or could you reiterate the point you were saying about the mindfulness? Were you speaking about what I said about how they offer it at work, but it's not really?
Yeah, in a way that is. So I was a mindfulness practitioner for a long time, and my doctoral work actually is on mindfulness and the practice of psychotherapy. But where I am now is that mindfulness is only about my relationship with Duncan. It's not really about my relationship with anybody else. And where I run into trouble is my relationships with other people. And so that's, I think, where the training needs to focus is on these relational challenges that lawyers face. I hope that makes it clearer.
Yes, and I think that maybe speaks to why it wasn't really necessarily that effective, because if we're going to work just to have like a moment of meditation or something, that's not really digging into the relational issues. So I think that's a great way of putting it. Marjorie, you were sort of discussed already, so I'm putting you on the spot, but I would love to hear your insights into that.
I'm happy to, because I've just finished reading all of my externs' final journals from this semester. I had what I consider to be a ridiculously large group of 18 students, which to me is too much for a seminar. And yet it turned out to be one of the most successful seminars I've taught on this. I mean, it's called Civil Practice Externship, but what I really teach is how to be a whole person. The reason I gave up doctrinal teaching is because I was most interested in the well-being of my students, the lawyers they'd become, and the clients they'd serve. And these students, to a person, like really got it, really got what I wanted to communicate. And we do a few minutes of mindfulness at the beginning, and so many of them had never done any meditation before and now have incorporated it into their lives to handle stress. And I focus on things like kindness and how important that is to the practice of law. And it's so rewarding to see it make a difference in these soon-to-be lawyers' lives that I hope they carry on. The other thing I wanted to add, and the reason I posted, I didn't mean to post it in the middle of when Debbie was talking, the citation to Judy Cohn's Warrior One is because it's focused on lawyers. She addresses the teachings of mindfulness to the practice of law. And I don't know how to solve Debbie's problem that, the powers that be don't understand that there are only 24 hours in a day, and she has to take care of herself and her life in order to take care of her clients. But I really want to recommend that to people who either already have a mindfulness practice or don't, because every week on Thursdays, there's a teaching, and Judy is just so good at relating the classic texts on mindfulness and meditation to the current day practice of law. So that site is up there somewhere. That's all I had to add now, but if there are any other questions, I'm here.
I love that. I have a couple of thoughts. One is just to push back on, or to push that further. What is the disconnect though? Because I feel that too with my students. They were like loving the opportunity because I had them doing reflective journals and all of that. And so what's the sort of thing that happens between when you kind of graduate and then you're busy and people are calling you and everything? And how do we maintain that sort of authentic self in the workplace? So if you could speak to that. And then I was just going to mention that one of our EC members has been saying frequently that we should have a group sit. And I feel like that would really be a nice thing, because I know it's very hard for me to do unless I'm kind of like brought into a group, and then I feel comfortable and I can do it. So anyway, those were my two thoughts.
So it's really hard to leave the embrace of my seminar and even go back to their other classes, but then to go into the culture that is the practice of law. But if they keep their connection to mindfulness and meditation, then they have the tools to, if not change the culture of where they are, to figure out as they continue their journey, how can I be true to myself and those I love and still practice law? And maybe that's why I've been in academia for the past 40 years because I've got the luxury of thinking that way. It's
Yes.
hard. You know, it's hard. But first of all, finding a community to support that is essential, like this one is. And not losing sight of what you really cared about and why you really cared about it is really important.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you. Are you at Rutgers? Is that right?
No, Toro Law Center.
Oh, Toro. Okay. Thank you. I did want to ask, since we're getting into these sort of really interesting topics, if maybe everybody would want to share their email. I know we have it through our membership, but just to kind of put those in the chat so it'd be easier for those of us who wanted to connect with each other through this discussion. Nanette, did you want to come on for a second? Because you said something in the chat, but now it's pretty far back. So maybe would you mind coming on and saying what you put in the chat?
No, I'm actually not sure, Bonnie.
Oh, it was about what was said in terms of the transformative power of law. And you said that's important.
Oh, I was referring to yes, I think what Julie had mentioned when she was speaking. And I think, I think about this conversation and PISLAP. And so I think, one component, of course, is how we as individuals can bring, as Bonnie was saying, our full selves into the law. But I guess the other piece to me is how we use the law to transform the culture, to achieve justice, to bring healing into communities. And so I think, for us as PISLAP, I think we have to sit really with both dimensions of that mission. So that's sort of how I see it.
Before we go to Nikki, would you mind giving us an example of sort of using the law to transform culture, of something that, PISLAP has done or something that we could think about doing?
Yeah, maybe restorative justice, of course, is one way, because you're not only, creating a process where people have the ability to communicate with each other, to sit in circle, to share, but you're also substantively impacting the law, because you're resolving a criminal case potentially, or a civil dispute, or a community dispute through the vehicle of a community dialogue. So I know everybody knows about restorative justice, but it just that was what came into my mind when you asked for an example.
Yes, that is a great example. I feel like I just am dying to say this one other thing before we go to Nikki, but in terms of restore, I just mentioned this to someone from our local radio station. I'm sorry, this is just so exciting to me that I have to share it. Derek Black is this person who graduated from New College 10 years ago, and he actually was I believe, stepson of David Duke, and it kind of reminds me of what the speaker that we had last year. And I do feel I'm really interested in trying to create some kind of a dialogue with him, because he apparently transformed at New College because a group of Jewish students invited him to continue to come to Shabbat dinners, and they sort of like kept refuting his ideas, and he renounced his membership and everything like that. So I just feel like that was sort of like this mini restorative session that took place. And I would love for more people to learn about how things like that can happen, because it just seems that would be such a great way of having a transformation, especially with the rise of white nationalism that we're seeing. So I felt like that was something I had wanted to share and think about if that's something we could even do with the group. Okay, now to Nikki.
Hi, everyone. So I feel like maybe being a DA on this call is a little bit strange, but I was hired. Okay, cool. Under a reform prosecutor in San Francisco, and before that, I worked for the newspaper industry in the legislature in California, and I helped write laws that would make transparent police misconduct that was secret for 40 years in California. And so I think I'll offer that legislation is definitely a way of changing the culture. And also then now I'm the public records person in our office, and talking to people within my office about fulfilling that law is often a battle. I have a lot of internal pressure not to comply with the law in certain ways. And so I see the power of law changing the law, and I also see the resistance that happens with that. And I've kind of long thought that meditation in prisons for not just prisoners, but for prison workers, employees, could be really transformative. But those are just sort of my thoughts and where my head is at in incorporating those kinds of changes into the law.
Nikki, I love what you said. I did want to ask you more about it. And then I also wanted to say that I think that that's what Sylvia Clute does, if I'm right. And if you haven't already connected with her, I believe that's what she does, but Nanette can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sylvia's on the call. Sylvia's on the call, actually.
Okay, oh, so she can tell us. Okay, is working with prisoners and doing meditation. But Nikki, before we go to Sylvia, could you explain what you meant about, because I had to deal with public records a lot, and also with the ADA. So the flip side of it was people not just saying the ADA was guidelines and not wanting to comply. So I felt like I was kind of like pushing on that end, but I'm so curious what you're saying about the public records and not wanting to comply.
So I think it's true with all government agencies, and this was my experience representing the news media, and it's my experience talking internally to people who work for the government, which is strange to me in an office in the San Francisco DA's office, where you had a DA recalled because of public outcry about a particular case, one in particular, but then also the data coming out of our office and then the perception of crime in the city. And so as somebody who believes in the Public Records Act and access, I believe in transparency in government. That's the only power that people have to check their government, is to understand what's happening and then to criticize it, or try to change it. And once someone is working from within an agency, they not only find it onerous and obnoxious, but strangely, like the comms team in my office, and I hope I'm not saying anything that will get out, but they're like, why do people want to know this? Why are people not trusting us? And we've had a very high profile killing in the last couple of weeks at a Walgreens, and the public is very critical of the decision we've made. And we ultimately did disclose video, but there was a lot of resistance to sort of showing our work. And so I think once people have the power, they don't necessarily want to be questioned or checked. And I don't understand that attitude. I think it's a bad attitude. And so I try to push them, but I also have to do so in a way that doesn't feel like an attack within the office, because I've taken that approach and it hasn't gotten me very far. And so I have to sort of act like I'm understanding of their attempts to keep things secret. But I think it just, transparency law, and then there is an inherent criticism, skepticism of that need for transparency.
Okay, I'm glad I asked you, because I wasn't 100% sure if you meant like you didn't want to comply, and I was wondering if it was almost like a civil disobedience going on. But I completely understand, because people were always annoyed, like, why do I have to do this and everything with the ADA, with public records and everything. And that sort of like, once you're in the administration, that sort of desire to protect the administration itself. And I felt like a lot of times I was like, but I'm here to serve the people, not the administration. So so that must have been, we were sort of on the same page with that. Yeah, I definitely observed that, definitely the comms team and everything. So Sylvia, would you be able to, I may have been wrong, but I thought that I remember in the call a few months ago that maybe that would be helpful to Nikki. Is she there?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Because this is the first time I've ever done Zoom on my phone. So,
Okay.
so anyway, I'm really connecting with a lot that you all said. I started practicing law during the height of the women's movement in the 1970s. And I worked on changing so many laws, trying to update Virginia's antiquated common law system for women and children. And there came a point when I decided, you know what, these are bandages on a leaky dike. And what we really need is system change. So yes, I just this morning taught my third class in a prison. And this is, I believe, this is system change. So I have 13 men. It's a low security prison. And I'm teaching them unitive justice using materials that were compiled, including extraordinary videos that were done by two men who were incarcerated for over 20 years each. And the two men who were incarcerated, they transformed their prison culture. So these videos are teaching the men how to transform their prison culture using justice as love, which is a term I use. It's not a term that they use, but that's exactly what they were doing. So now, oh my goodness, it would be a longer conversation, but I've just taught my third class of teaching unitive justice to men who are in the belly of the beast. And also, so I teach 2 days a week now at the prison and 2 days in a high school. And one thing that was really interesting is when I talk about the need for justice system change to the teachers and the administrators, yeah, I can tell it's sort of an abstract concept. When I talk about that to the inmates, there's nothing abstract about it. You know, they totally understand. And yeah, anyway, that is what I'm doing. And I think that this is the system change that really will get at the heart of it. So our vision is, so the two men who were in prison for 25 years and did this training program, they are now out here teaching people about justice as love. And they are very credible messengers for that. So when I was working with them, I saw a criminology theory. What they did is replicable. And so that's what we are seeking to do in this training program. So I believe that we can use that time that we pay for people while they're incarcerated. Transformation takes time. If we can use the time they spend in prison to give them the tools for transformation, for them to understand justice as love, I can see them coming out and teaching the rest of us justice as love, how to really transform the concept and our understanding of justice. So anyway, that's a brief download on what I'm doing now.
Sylvia, that is so great. And actually, this is a slight aside, but last summer I was teaching a women in the law class, and the Dobbs decision was leaked and then was actually, the opinion came out. And that was the first, I felt like this was the time that my women in the law class was really more like they could actually experience what we were discussing at such a deep level. And it was like we ended up just sort of having a healing session almost every class, because they were like 17, 18 years old for them to be dealing with this situation in that moment. So it feels a little bit similar. So maybe there's something about like when you could actually, it's not just theoretical, you're really sort of experiencing it. It kind of feels with like a little bit with like what Lisa was talking about teaching people how to protest. But I think that those strands seem to come together for me a little bit. What do you think, Sylvia?
I think that's true. I think it's finding those opportunities, because I was amazed at how different it was from the very first class, which I did last week, on just giving them the basics of unitive justice and how it's different, and how they received it so differently from the people we're teaching in a high school and in a junior high. Yeah, there's something to exactly what you said. We got to figure that out.
Yes, that even when we go to law school, I mean, I just remember someone saying, I had never even signed a lease. Like I was just coming out of college. I just didn't have, I had never really interacted with the law in any real meaningful way at all. So I think that is very interesting. Nanette just said she had to go. I hope she knows how to download all the, or if we'll be able to get the chat, because I can't follow it at the same time as seeing who has their hands up and everything. But it's about 2:05. So is there anyone else who wanted to share anything? I really feel like after these kinds of meetings and or calls, I'd like to come up with sort of a working plan or something like that. So I feel like we had a couple of things. The idea of maybe sitting as a group in contemplative practice, I think would be nice. Having a more supportive community where we could just come together and talk about some of these issues, I feel was coming out of the discussion. And then what Sylvia was saying about transformative law and unitive law were the kind of the three main takeaways I had. But I do also like the idea that we could all, stay in touch after these conversations a little bit more, like have maybe a either it's, I don't know how to use Slack, but something like that where we could have conversations between meetings. Marjorie.
I just want to say, do you know how to save the chat? If you look at the three dots at the end of your chat and click on them, you can save the chat.
Okay.
The second thing was, I think Sylvia might well have stepped up to do this without my prompting. But she's hosting a pretty amazing, albeit expensive, conference pretty soon that Sylvia, you may want to talk about it or put the information in the chat.
Yes, so on October 1, PISLAP is meeting on Sunday before the conference in Richmond to talk about these very things. Law school curriculum, how do we organize to do this? So if you all come to Richmond on Sunday, October 1 for the PISLAP meeting, then you can stay for the next 3 days for the first Unitive Justice International Conference. We have people coming from 3 continents and the Philippines to be presenters. Yes, I will.
Do you have scholarships or anything available? I think that was mentioned.
We have asked for people to donate for scholarships, but we haven't gotten any of those so far. But yeah, so that's not in the works right now. But we do have, if people can get 3 other people to join, then we give them a free access to the live stream of the conference.
Oh, so we can see it in the live. If we're in the live stream, can we participate in any way or no?
We're talking about a question and answer for the last 10 minutes of each presentation.
Okay.
And then there may be opportunities to do that. Best thing of all is to come and be there in person. But yeah, so that will be, and anyone who signs up will have access to it for at least 3 months.
That's great. Okay, Duncan has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up about Sylvia and Unitive Justice. That is, can you put in the chat like the website? Is it the Unitive Justice website? Does that point me toward the conference and to you? How do we get in touch with you?
So it's the Alliance for Unitive Justice. It's A4uj.org. And the homepage has all of it on there. A4uj.org.
A4uj.org. Okay, thanks so much.
And I don't know how to chat on Zoom on my call, on my phone. So I'm a little handicapped right now.
Did you say it's
I'm
the
putting
4
it in
as
the
in
chat.
the number 4 or?
Yes, the letter A, the number 4, uj.org.
Okay.
That's the Alliance for Unitive Justice website, and everything about, well, the links to the conference website are on the homepage there.
Wonderful. Okay, so maybe we will all meet again in person. I'm watching A Small Light about Meepgees, which also feels kind of tied in with everything, but We'll Meet Again is sung in this absolutely beautiful scene. So anyway, I was thinking we'll meet again in person, hopefully at the Unitive Justice program. It was wonderful to get to talk to all of you. I am going to suggest that we do these quarterly at the least, just so we can, have some more time other than our sort of go round to connect with one another. And I think we all put our email in the chat. Marjorie told me how to save it. Do I now need to save it again since more things were put in the chat, or? And I don't
I've
know.
never known that, so I always keep saving.
Oh, okay. And
I've
I also
never
don't know where it goes. Can we
Oh.
each download it? Or?
Yes, everybody can download it. You should have a Zoom thing in your somewhere,
okay.
and that's where it's saved.
And that's where it goes. Okay. Thank you, Marjorie. I really didn't know. So anyway.
It's very rare that I can give technical expertise to anybody.
Amazing. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I will, I didn't know, Perry, is there anything else you wanted to say to close? But I think we're kind of coming up on time, and I definitely want to.
I just wanted to reinforce what Sylvia said briefly. The conference in Richmond looks terrific. PISLAP is having kind of a pre-conference gathering on Sunday at the Virginia Holocaust Museum, actually. And at the end of our short program, there will be a tour of the museum. So I encourage those of you who are interested to sign up for that and sign up for Sylvia's terrific program as well. There will be a blurb on the Unit of Justice website about the PISLAP program shortly, and we will of course send out emails about it.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm glad that the Holocaust Museum tour idea worked out, because it's so relevant and really timely for the meeting to be taking place there. So thank you all for coming today. And we hope to do this again, because I thought it was really wonderful and a good opportunity for everyone to share sort of the things that they're dealing with as we carry on in our work and in our home life and in our spirituality. So thank you so much.
Very well said. And the whole program is being recorded, and Annette, as usual, will send around a link to the recording for those of you who want to hear your voices again.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.